Thank you all for coming. I always said that the birds can be singing, and it's not everybody that gets it. But then it is a duty for people like you and like me to draw the other people's attention to the singing birds. Because if you don't, they may never get it. And I am really humbled that you were ready to listen, because I'm ready to tell this story over and over to whoever is ready to listen. So if I may not explain much, because it's quite a long history for 56 years. If I were to say everything, then we'll spend about 2 weeks sitting in this room and we'll not even finish it. So actually, this conflict has started as far back as 1960. Because before colonization, during colonization, Cameroon was a colonial state, a German colonial state. But when the English and the French defeated the Germans, they divided Cameroon into two. You had the East Cameroon and the West Cameroon. And the French Cameroon and the French imposed, they imposed their own type of system of education, legal system and everything on the French, their language, on the French-speaking part of Cameroon, and the British did some for the English-speaking part of Cameroon. And these were two autonomous states. French Cameroon got independence in 1960, and English Cameroon got supposedly independence in 1961. Because when it came to the term, to the time when English Cameroon was supposed to be given independence, they asked them two questions. Would you get independence by joining La Republic or by joining Nigeria? Just what she said. They didn't give them a third choice of whether they would love to remain as an independent state. And they opted to join the French-speaking Cameroon, because as Roxana has said, during the colonial time, they were one under the Germans. But they opted to join as a federal state. And it continued like that until 1972, when the president decided that instead of calling it the Federal State of Cameroon, it would be called the United States of Cameroon. And let me tell you, from the first day, there was some agitation by the English-speaking Cameroonians that they were being marginalized in whatever proceedings were taking place. And when he changed to the United Republic of Cameroon, there were complaints. Then later on in 1984, the president again removed the word united, and it became La République du Cameroun. We call that total assimilation. But within all this time, there have been complaints. The Southern Cameroonians have been complaining and saying that that they were not satisfied with the agreements between the two states. And this continued until, between 1960 and 2016, those people who could stand up and say anything to challenge the government, they were arrested, tortured, and detained. And I remember when Roxana was in Cameroon, we used to go to court to defend some, or we go to the administration to lobby to get them out of prison. And now in 2016, okay, let me not say that the lawyers came out, because the reason why the lawyers came out was like, when the country came together, when it was united, the English system of law was applying in the English-speaking part of the country, and the French system of law was applying in the French. But then it came to a time when they started taking French magistrates and sending them to come and preside over English courts. Meanwhile, French magistrates and lawyers, they are trained under the civil law, and English magistrates and lawyers, they are trained under the Anglo-Saxon law. But then it came to a point where the lawyers had complained, and they talked of trying to harmonize the laws. And they started with the Criminal Procedure Code. But the lawyers discovered that it was a total assimilation of the English procedure by the French procedure. And the French law has at the background the Napoleonic Code, so it is too harsh. So the lawyers complained about it, and yet at first they wrote a petition to the minister, and the minister will not reply, and then they decided to hold a meeting in the court premises to decide on what step to do next. But before they arrived the court premises, they were holding their wigs and gowns, ready to go to court after the meeting. Before they arrived, they were soldiers all over the court, armed. So the lawyers became angry, wore their wigs and gowns, and marched through the street carrying banners. And when they did, the teachers, as the lawyers were protesting, some of them were arrested and detained. Then the teachers followed, and the teachers were still arrested and detained. And then the civilians came out. When the civilians came out, most of them were shot and killed. And the young boys now organized themselves as a defense force to try to protect their relations who were being killed. That is why you see them, they started with the catapult because they didn't have guns. So they were fighting the armed soldiers with catapults. And then later on, when they saw that it was not working, they were still being killed, they went back and got rifles. Then got what we call, they're not rifles, then guns from their parents or from their grandparents who were using these then guns for hunting. And they got it and they came out and started fighting the military. And lots of them, we estimate the number to about 6,000 have been killed up till date. And at one point, some of them became radicalized. And they are now living in the bushes, attacking the military and killing them and getting weapons. And if you ask some of them what they want, they will tell, instead of them telling you they need food, they will tell you they need weapons. That is just to show how radicalized they have become. And if you talk to any of them, they have a story to tell you. If you ask them why they were radicalized, they will tell you either my parents were killed, our house was burned, my sister was killed, my brother was killed, or I was arrested and tortured, or my bike, because they use motorcycles for as commercial bikes to transport people, or they will say the only thing I had that I could rely on, which was my bike, was burnt, and I had nothing else to rely on than to go to the bush and than to pick up the gun and go to the bushes. So that is how it all started.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It sounds like, and there are many factors that will challenge the pace of change in Cameroon. In your view, what was the biggest challenge you faced when trying to encourage change or motivate change?
Okay. I can't talk about the biggest challenge without telling you how I got to be here. Actually, I started when I left the university with a master's in law. I went to work as a volunteer for a human rights NGO. And that was about 22 years ago. And in the course of working, I discovered that there were these poor people who had good cases or who were suffering from some sort of injustice, but who could not go to court because they didn't have somebody to protect them. So I decided that I was going to become a lawyer so that I could be able to defend them in court. So I became a lawyer about 12 years ago, and we've done more than, let me call it 3,000 cases for free, pro bonus, and we still have a lot going on. And during my work as a human rights volunteer, the most challenging thing was talking to a mother or a parent whose child has been killed because of injustice, and promising that parent that all will be well, when actually I did not believe in myself. that was the most challenging moment. But before then, I had these challenges of being humiliated, both by the administrators and the lawyers, because there were moments in court when litigants come in and say they don't have lawyers. All the lawyers will laugh at the bar, and then they will turn around and say, but where is Barrister Mbinkar? And then they will laugh again, and I will just come up and say, my lord, I'm going to pick up the case. So it kept on going like that until when this crisis started. And in all honesty, I have seen people die. I've been with people who have died. And I tell them I understand. But I don't understand. Because I know I can never understand until my own child is killed. I can never understand until my father is burnt in a house and I cannot even retrieve the corpse. I can never understand until I go to stay in the bush because my house has been burned down with the malaria and now the coronavirus, and perhaps I don't have food to eat. I can never understand until my own child is sick and all the hospitals have been burnt down. And perhaps I am unemployed for years and I can't afford just to give that child first aid. That is what the world is telling me now. That is why the world is so quiet. They are telling me they understand, but they don't understand. Just like I don't understand until you are part of it.
Do you think that there has been any improvement in Cameroon since the start of the conflict?
Things are getting worse. Before, I don't move about with my phone for fear that I may get some information and I will not be able to talk to people like I'm doing now. And each time after a meeting, I'm running back to my room to check on my phone to see who is dead, who next, which of the villages is crying, whose house has been burnt. I sleep and I wake up at 4 o'clock and I turn around and I discover that I slept with my phone on the bed and I struggle to pick the phone and I'm trying to see what had happened while I was sleeping. The moment my phone rings from Cameroon, I panic because you don't know what is going to happen next. The pictures are so traumatizing. I won't even advise you people to look at them. You know, a few days ago, I sat up on my bed and I thought about the last massacre that Roxana talked about it. And I was wondering why I am still in Oxford. I was wondering why I should not go back to Cameroon and pick up arms. But I had promised myself that I had to stay alive so that I should get somebody accountable for all the atrocities committed in Cameroon. And that is the only thing that keeps me going. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Roxana knows. From the poorest of the poor family, no backing. The lawyers with whom we went out in the street, most of them don't want to talk about it for fear of being killed. Nobody is. I come to Oxford. Few people are ready to listen. Others don't care. I go to the international community. They're so quiet. Meanwhile, in the course of sensitizing people on human rights in Cameroon, I was telling them that even if we don't have recourse in Cameroon, even if we don't succeed in Cameroon, we can go internationally and succeed. I've been to the Human Rights Committee. I've taken cases to the Human Rights Committees. We've had decisions, and the Cameroon government has refused to respect those decisions. I've been to the African Commission. There are cases, and the Cameroon government has refused to respect the decisions. The question is, where do I go to next? And let me tell you tonight, I'm happy you're more than 20 of you here. And I'm happy you are getting to hear this story. I am pleading with you on one thing. Go out and tell just one person. Ask just a single question to somebody who matters about Cameroon. Talk about it. Because if you don't, the blood of those innocent children in Cameroon, they will all cry over us. You'll be held responsible. Because you heard about it and you decided to stay quiet. Because it is true that where there is oppression, when you stay quiet, you are for the oppressor. I don't know whether that answered your question.
No, definitely it has. And I think we can see that what makes you so admirable is that you have this very proactive approach and you put your heart into your work. A lot of people, when they hear about crises on the news, they think one day I will help those who are suffering, and then they may donate to a charity, or they may just end up doing nothing. But you took the extra steps of qualifying as a lawyer and then setting up a pro bono law chambers. So what motivated you to take those extra steps that the average person wouldn't?
Sympathy. Sympathy and love. Love for everybody. Love even for your enemy, which is the most difficult. Love for everybody. Let me tell you people, I was never trained to be a human rights activist. I grew up with my parents and they could manage to send us to school in a village setup. But then I had kid sisters and my parents had to look for other children who are not going to school to try to help them to try to babysit them. And I remember coming back from school at one point, and it was one of these girls who cooked for us. And because normally in an African setup, when we cook, we go out, we sit outside without even a table, and we eat from the floor. And when we went out to eat, I discovered that all of us were eating outside, but that this girl who cooked for us was not there. So I started looking for her, and I went back to the kitchen, and she was sitting in the kitchen alone and eating from a small, tiny dish. And I lost my appetite. And the next day, I asked her if she would want to go back home, and she said that she would really love to go back home. And I tell her, I'm going to assist you go back home. And I did. And up till that, my mother does not know that I did it. They were wondering why the girl just left abruptly, but I helped her to escape. I didn't realize at the time what I was doing. And even after the university, I had to stay in the city with one of my aunts so that I could have access to information and know whether, and then like perhaps keep in touch to get enrolled in the government service or anything. And I stayed with my aunt for about 3 months, and she had what we call house help, and she was beating this girl every day. And I just come out from the university. I didn't have a salary. I didn't have a dime on me. But I told this girl we are going to look for a way for her to escape. And there was one morning she came to me and told me she was going out to buy some provisions for the house. And I told her, take that money and pay your transport and go back home. And she did. And when my aunt discovered it, I overheard her telling her friend in the living room that she was quite sure that I was the one who helped that girl escape, because the girl was such that she could not think about escaping. And she told that her friend that because she feels that I did help the girl, I'm going to do all the house chores. And the moment I heard it, I ran into the kitchen and I was cleaning and singing. And I was happy for one thing, because I knew she could not beat me up. And she did that girl. I didn't realize all those things until when I started working for human rights. And what I tell those who come to work with me, you can't train somebody to become a human rights activist. It comes, you are born a human rights activist. And as a human rights activist, if you work with your head, you are going to fail. You work with your heart. I don't know.
I think it's just beautiful that you remind us that it's not always necessary to just lead with your head, but to lead with your heart. I think we all forget that that's equally, if not more important nowadays. So for all of us who are considering a career in human rights, did you find it intimidating at the start of your career? Did you face any threats?
Yeah, at the start of my career, I first worked for this human rights NGO, and we had a bus. And it was not intimidating at first because I was like hiding behind the bus to do a lot of things. I felt protected by him. But I remember him telling us when we had difficult days that even if he is killed, his spirit will jump into one of us. And I was like, God, I don't want this man's spirit to jump into me. And at one point, he made me to understand that pain was in the mind. That unless you allow yourself to be controlled by pain, you don't feel the pain. And I have lived on that. Not only that, stupidly, you people may not know it. I know it will sound funny for some of you. I believe stupidly in God. Stupidly in God in the sense that even as a law graduate, I don't argue on the Bible, and I pay unquestionable allegiance to God. I don't want to know why He is there. I don't want to know whether there are three persons in one God. I don't want to follow any sermon, but I believe that there is God, and that God is love. And that is why when things become so hard, when they are more difficult, and they are above what I can do, I go on fasting and I go down on my knees. And I tell Him, God, I'm simply a servant in your vineyard working for your creatures. And if you don't help me, I won't care. Because they are your creatures, they are not mine. I didn't create anybody on earth. So this has been my source of strength. I know I've had lawyers from all over the world coming to work in my office, from Belgium, from Canada, from Britain, from the US. And then I hear them laughing. You understand? And I see them going out and laughing. But at the end of the day, we make it. At the end of, I'm happy that some of them are turning to believe in me, even though they still mock me for the prayers, but they are believing that it works. So that has been my source of strength.
I think, just listening to you speak, I think all of us feel quite motivated and quite moved. When I was reading about you and your work, Albert Mukong came up. And from what I understand, he trained you before or while you were qualifying as a lawyer. Could you speak a bit about what he did and the influence he had on you?
Okay. As I said, I had talked about him. He's the one who said pen was in the mind. But when I met him, he was one of those who represented the Southern Cameroons during unification. And he protested on the day that they came together to talk on the terms. Because when they came, they had already prepared something, they just read it, and then they started dancing, and eating, drinking, and dancing, and he protested. And since 1961, he had been protesting until he died in 2003. And there were times where when he would call on people to protest, and nobody would protest, and he would protest alone in the street. And even those of us working with him will sit in the office and see him marching along the street alone. And of course, he himself had been to prison. And he told us, you can never work as a human rights activist to the end without stepping on people's toes. Then you must not have done your work. Yeah. And he told us, as a human rights activist, be ready to die, be ready to get to prison, but what we stay on is the truth. Is what you think, is the love you have for people, is what you think that is just. That is what is going to stay on after you're gone. He did go to prison, and he did take the Cameroon government, after he was released, he took the Cameroon government to the Human Rights Committee, and the Cameroon government was asked to compensate him, and they compensated him, and he died. And I remember talking to him on his deathbed, and he told me, Caroline, when I was poor and working for human rights, I was never sick. But the monies has come and I'm dying. So he said, be careful. Monies can kill you. So, and as I say, we were about 10 of us, and he kept on saying that when he is dead, when he will die, his spirit will jump into someone, and that person will continue the work. Little did I know that I will be here. My spirit is going to jump into. It could be one of you here. it could be somebody sitting there. So when I die, my spirit is not going to rest. It's surely going to jump into somebody, and this work will continue. That was the impact he had on me, and he was like really a small man. And I remember two of us, when we go to meet people like the Prime Minister, they would tell us to hold on until they talk to the human rights promoters, because they didn't believe we were the human rights promoters before we can come in. And then he used to joke about our size, and he would say, Caroline, perhaps we stay behind, and those who have the size, they go ahead, and then we can follow. So he had, as I say, he had a lot of impact on me, and he taught me how to fast, how to do dry fasting for 7 days, and yet you are singing and thanking God for being on an empty stomach. And he taught me how to work selflessly for people without expecting any pay. How to understand that all that matters in the world is not monies. Because on your deathbed, you tend to ask yourself, was it worth the pence? Those who are killing in Cameroon, I know there's coming a day when they will ask themselves whether it was worth the pence killing these little kids to stay in power. I can see you're all looking at me. I know you are young. I know you're thinking about your future. I know some of you want to go into corporate law. I know some, but please, it's not like monies is not good. Monies is good. But monies is useless if you can't think of the other person who hasn't got. Monies is useless if you can have 3 square meals and there's somebody going on an empty stomach. I don't know, perhaps I'm talking to a different audience. Are you people getting me? I know it's a different world from mine. And I know people, there are times I talk like this and people don't understand me, and what I always tell them is, it is either I'm far from the madding crowd, or the crowd is far from the madding me.
Thank you so much for telling us about Albert Mbinkar. He sounds like a really amazing man.
Yeah, he's known as a prisoner without the crime, because he was detained just because he was criticizing the government. So he was detained for 10 years, and by the time he was released, the wife had died, one of the kids had died, and he was homeless. So he stayed homeless and only got a home that year that he was going to die, when he had the monies.
So my final question, or it's two questions before I open it up to everyone else, is what do you think is the future for Cameroon now, and what can we do?
Yeah, the future for Cameroon now. What I am more concerned with now is the people in the bushes whom I've promised that I'm going to do something either to stop the war or to get them food, but I don't know from where I'm going to get it. I don't know where I'm going to, tomorrow, I don't know how I'm going to get the food or how I'm going to stop the war. And the only thing you people can do, perhaps, is to try, as I said, to talk to people about what you know. Make sure you publicize this. Ask questions to those who matter. If you have the opportunity, ask Britain why they have not come back to Cameroon to decolonize us from slavery. Ask France why they are extorting resources from our country and paying, and sponsoring the army to kill us. Ask questions about certain things. Read our report and try to get Christian to ask questions about it. And perhaps, if you are opportune, think of giving a loaf of bread to those suffering, to those children who are in the bushes. It doesn't pay if we can eat in Oxford and sit on high tables and drink wine when those kids, they don't even have a glass of clean water to drink. That is why when I came, Roxana told me I'll be eating at, how do you call it?
You could have eaten in SCR, yeah.
Yeah, if I wanted to, but I told her there was no use for me to go there and eat while my people are not eating. So please, I appeal to your consciences. And I want to tell you that I am here today as that little baby who's been born in the bushes, who has no comfort. He's sleeping out in the cold with the malaria and the coronavirus, with very low immune system. And I am here, like that little girl in Cameroon, who has not gone to school for 4 years. Because she gets up in the morning and all she hears are just gunshots. I am here like that widow whose husband has been killed simply because he falls between the ages of 15 and 50 and he's considered to be a radicalized separatist. I am here like that child who got up one morning, went out of the house and came back to discover that his old father, who could not move, had been burned down. And he goes in and the only thing he can see is an empty burnt mattress, and they gather this burnt mattress and put in the coffin and bury. I am here like that woman who ran away from the soldiers when they attacked and left a 1 month old baby on the bed, thinking that the soldiers will not harm that child, just to come back and find out that the child had been shot on the skull. I am here like that pregnant woman who was shot on the stomach and she died with the child. I am here like the family in Gabo, where a whole lineage has been completely exterminated. I am here like all the Cameroonians who do not know what is going to happen to them the next day. Think about it. Think about it, please. And play your own role and don't count the lost. I know I'm speaking, all of you sitting here, you are my daughter's age. I know I'm speaking to children, but who knows? I don't believe so much in numbers. I'm not comfortable in a place where we have rich people, but I am comfortable in a place where there is love. And I hope we do have love in this world at this moment. And if you didn't care, please can you start caring now? Can you think about it? Can you reflect about it overnight? I had this student from the Washington Law School who came to my office, and we left work. We were so tired, we went to eat in one of the local restaurants, and there was this young boy. And when I asked the young boy how he got into the restaurant, he told me it was because the parents could not afford his school fees. And that girl later on came up and told me that she went back to that restaurant and found out that the fees the boy needed was the cost of a pair of shoes in the US. And she said, every year I'm going to sacrifice a pair of shoes to get this child to go to school. I've never met her again. We've never met. But I see the boy every day, and I see the boy going to school. God bless her soul wherever she is. Thank you for listening.